you know when you're cooking and you're just kind of winging it with different seasonings and spices and stuff, and then it's time to recreate that dish and you're kind of hoping that it turns out good? That's kind of going to be this tutorial. Anyways, so let's go in and start creating this. So I am going to come into here and we will just go in and create a new version. All right. So now we're in version 2 and we will just delete all of this. So we're starting out, let's just start right at the beginning, and we are just grabbing a background. And the background itself, we're just dragging it up into the viewer to see it up there. Let's come over to the inspector over here. If you don't have the inspector, you can open it up. We're going to be changing all the stuff over here. Let's go into gradient and pick 2 colors. I'm just going to pick the 2 colors that I previously had. So it was like a purple-ish color and a blue tealish color. So something like that. So that's what we'll work with. And next we are going to actually start making the particles. So there's a couple of different ways to get the particle nodes up. We can right click and go to add tool, and then we can go into particle. And we have all the particle tools here. You can also come up to the effects, come into tools, and then in here particles. They're all the same tools, right? Different ways to look at them. Actually, let's leave this open. I don't really use this often or that often. So we're going to start with this image emitter, and that's going to take in this image here and then emit. And so let's just connect that over. And one thing you'll notice is it's red, and that's because in a particle system, there's a whole bunch of processes that are going to happen in there, and then it has to render out into pixels. And so to get it to render out, if we look through here, we can see that there's a renderer. So we'll grab the renderer and we will pipe that into here, and now they're all good. And if we go like that, we can see that it is solid, right? Doesn't really look like particles. It's just pretty solid. So if we come into the emitter, we have this density here that we can change. So let's change this to like 0.2, 0.2. Okay, so now we're getting kind of like little dots there, a little dot grid. That might work. But I think I want to change the size of the dots a little bit more. So I want to show you something else that you can do. We can grab, let's say, a background. We'll grab another background, clicking on it. Coming over here to the inspector, we're going to turn off this auto resolution and make this 50 by 50. Okay, let's go back over to color and change this to white. If you're on a Mac, this looks a little different, but you can still get to white, or you just change all these values to 1 to get a white. And if we view this quick, that is our box. Let's grab an ellipse tool. So we can grab it here, or you can hit Shift Spacebar to bring up this tool, and then we could just type ellipse. And then there's our ellipse tool. We'll just hit enter. And we're just going to take our ellipse tool and connect that into our background. Now we have a little circle. And if we come into our particle emitter and then come up here to style, we can switch this style to bitmap. And then we can drag this in because now there's a new point there. So if we view this now, it's kind of looking the same how it was. It's just obviously a bit bigger. So let's go into size, and we could shrink this size down. So you can see there. Now we have all of our particles. Let's actually bring this down just a little bit more. Let's do like 1 by 1. Okay. So there we are. Now, we are still looking at this in 3-dimensional space because you can see like this background here. And so to actually view this in 2 dimensions, we're going to have to make this into a 3D system. So along the end here, there's some 3D tools. We can also bring them up. So we're going to have to get this is Shift Spacebar to bring the select tool up. If we type in camera, we can get the 3D camera, go back in there again, and then we get the renderer, the 3D renderer. There we are. So now we have both of these nodes. And in the particle renderer, we just want to make sure that the output is 3D and not 2D. So we're going to make sure it's 3D. And then we can connect the out of the camera into the out of the renderer, and it'll make a merge. So you can see there. And then this merge, 3D merge, we're going to go into the renderer. Now I'm going to pop up two views here so we can see two views. And I'll view the renderer over here and then the particle, or excuse me, the 3D merge right there. So now if I take a look at this, let's close this. We need a little more space here. If we take a look at this, we can see that our camera is pretty much up against this grid here. And so I'm just going to hold down Alt or Option and then middle mouse button, and we can rotate this. And then we can grab our little widget because we currently have the camera selected, and we can pull the camera back. And now over here in the rendered, this is the rendered version, we can see that now. So I'm just going to zoom out by hitting Command or Control and then scrolling out with mouse wheel, holding down middle mouse wheel to move around like this. It takes a little bit to get used to the controls for the three-dimensional space, but you will get it after a little bit of time. Okay, so now that we have that, last thing I'm going to do, since this is transparent in the background, is I'm just going to grab another background and change this background color to like a dark blue. So we'll do something like that, and then drag the out of the 3D renderer into the out of the merge, or excuse me, the background, which will then make another merge. And then if we view it, we drag it over here, we can see that grid. So let's go into our particle renderer, and we'll click this little button right here. Clicking on the emitter, the image emitter over here, then clicking this button, and then we can play with this to rotate this. As you can see, now we're having it on like a little plane there. We can rotate it around, something like that. And then let's click on my camera again, and we're gonna go in a little bit on the camera. So we can see that we have a really hard edge here, as well as hard edges around the back, and we also don't have any motion. So let's add in some of the motion, because I think the motion's pretty cool. But let's open this back up so you can see all of the nodes here. And so what we're going to be grabbing here is we're going to grab this gradient force. And we'll add that in. If we drag from here and we drag over the line, we can see that the line turns blue and yellow. We can drop it, and then it'll automatically be connected up. The other thing that we have to, there's another input here, is for the image. So let's go up and grab a fast noise. You can also come into here and type in fast to get the fast noise. So we'll have our fast noise. And now if we connect our fast noise up to this, and then we come into here, we can change the strength here, but we need to move our mouse, or our playhead in a little bit. So this little orange line. So we bring this in a little bit, and we can see that we're now getting some motion there, right? So if we play that, we can see that we're starting to get motion, right? So this is how it's looking. And yeah, so that's how it's looking, but we can still see that we have this edge, right? So we're almost there. We just need to fix this edge here. And so to do that, this background here, we're just going to grab a mask, a rectangle mask, and then connect the rectangle mask in, right? And if we just view just this, we can see that we have our rectangle mask. We can make this slightly bigger. So let's just go in the fit. We'll close that for now. We can grab the corner here and drag it out. And then on the, over here, we can turn the soft edge up a little bit, and we'll make that edge real soft. But the biggest thing here is if it's going soft, we want it to go soft and completely disappear before it gets to the edge, or else it has a weird edge that it looks kind of bad. So now if we view this, let's just see how it looks now. Whoops, let's view the whole thing. See how it looks now. It looks all right. It looks okay, but I wanted to spice this up just a little bit more, because if we look down here, we can see that all of these dots are the same size, right? So I want to change these dots a little bit. So to do that, what I'm going to do, we have some values that we can play with here. Is we can see that this here, all of these colors, we could use all of the colors, or we could use the alpha. It's really up to you what you want to use. We can use the color or the alpha, and I'll show you both of them quickly. So before all of this stuff right in here, so we have our particles being emitted, and then it goes into all of the movement and then the renderer. Let's open this up again. And the thing that we're going to be working with is this P custom. So if we bring the P custom in, this has a lot of different tools. Obviously we have number in, so we can map these values here, but then there's this particles. And if we click on that, we have a bunch of different controls that we can change a bunch of stuff for the particles, right? There's a lot of different parameters in here that we can change. So let's connect this up. So I'm just going to disconnect, then connect in, and then connect over. And in this P custom, if we look over here, we have a size. So the size, we can change that up with a lot of different values. So let's try taking the alpha, and we'll come into here, we'll put in alpha, the A, right? Because that's that value there. And if we look at this, it's probably going to render wrong, but if we just look at the render, we can see that they are way too big. They're all just overlapping. That's why it looks kind of bad like that. So if we just come in here and we divide that by, let's do 200, we can see that it's kind of coming back, right? So what we can do is we can divide this by, let's do N1. And so we're taking alpha, we're dividing by N1. N1 is going to be, if we come up here to numbers, this is going to be the number in 1, right? So that's the N1. And so now if we put this to 200, we can see that now we have those dots back. So let's connect this back up and let's actually view this. And what we can see is if we zoom in here, we can see our particles are changing in, let's view this one. We can see our particles are changing in size as they're getting this gradient over here, right? So if I was to come in here and let's say we increase this significantly, we can see that it's, the dots are bigger here and then they're getting smaller. If we change this, actually, let's get this side by side so you can actually see what we're doing here. So we're just feathering out this edge. And as we feather out the edge, it's changing the size of our dots, right? So that will get nice fall off everywhere on this. I think that looks pretty pleasant. Only thing that I really don't like about this is these lines are going kind of straight onto the camera. So let's go back into this merge 3D and let's view it over here. And then we'll click on the particle emitter. And remember we had it set up. So if we just rotate this ever so slightly, like that maybe, now they kind of, dots seem like they're all over the place. And if we look at all of our edges, it just kind of looks like it just kind of rolls off because the dots get small. It's almost like was referred to as halftone, right? It's pretty cool. So now we have that. So the changing the size. So if we come into here, we can change this value up to whatever we want. So if we go to like 250, they're going to just get overall smaller, right? And then they fade off. So you can change this value to whatever you want. Because we have divide currently, the bigger this number gets, the smaller they're going to get. The smaller this number gets, the bigger the particles will get. So coming back, it's kind of flat. And then over time, it is adding in that motion. So it looks like there's a lot right here. If we come into our fast noise, this is going to be the thing that's really making all of the changes here. We can come into rate here and we can change this, right? And so what that's doing, let's just view this. That's just making it move, right? So before we had it at 0, so it stays like this. And so what it's doing is over time, it's giving the same force to the same set. So all of the particles that were right in the middle, they're all getting pushed the same force. If we change the rate here, then all of the particles are getting different amounts over different frames. So that gives us a kind of little wilder look overall, right? And so right now it doesn't look like much is moving. That's because they're all getting that force, right? So what we would have to do is then go into our force control here and let's change this value to something a bit more. Okay, well that's probably too much. Let's go to the 1 and maybe 0.5. Okay. So we can see that now we're having a bit more movement there, as you can see, right? So it's just playing around with these two controls really until you get something that you like, honestly. The fast noise itself, we can change the size of it, right? So this will obviously impact the overall a bit more. Okay, we need to bring this down. But yeah. I think we can actually switch this over to OpenGL, and then we could come in here to anti-aliasing and turn this high rate down, and we should probably get faster rendering. Okay, there we go. So there's a lot of different controls that we have to manipulate our particles here, but it really comes down to, and I don't really like the size being that big, so I'd bring it down a little bit. But the other thing too is down here they're kind of going away, so let's come back into the image emitter, and then we can change this lifespan to something, you know, more. So this project is only 114 frames, but we'll change the lifespan to 200 frames, and so now they'll just be on screen the whole time. So yeah, there we go. And it's just, like I said, playing around with these two different values here until we get something that we like a bit more. And then we can always come in, maybe change the how fast it moves. So once we get something that we actually like, the only other thing that I had was the actual text. And so in here, I just put in whatever I want, and we will connect that up to the end, and we'll view that. And I had like a little flicker effect in here. And so I can quickly show you how that flicker effect worked. If I come in, let's just view just this, right? If I come into here, I right click, I go into follower, I can then, that's a modifier, and change the delay. So I just change it to 1 frame, and I switch the order to random 1 by 1. And then we can go into shading. And all I did is I came to the beginning, I made the first keyframe 0, and then came in a bunch of frames, however many you want, bring it up to like 7-ish, and then come in a bit more, maybe like half of whatever this distance was, bring it way down, and then come in a little bit more, and then go full. So now, when I play that back, it looks like they were flickering, right? And you can obviously play with that a little bit more, maybe not so thin. And there you go. That's how we got that whole flicker effect going. And then we put that onto the video, and actually on here, white and probably a little lighter is probably better. But yeah, that's how that was added on. Oh, the other thing that I also added in over here with this, because it starts off on screen and there was no movement, so I just decided, hey, let's take this rectangle, duplicate it. So Control C, Control V. Duplicate the second one, because it's two masks going into one another. We have this paint mode now. I can turn this to multiply. And so then all we're going to do is just take the second one, and we will slide it off screen like that, keyframe, and then come in some frames, and then just change that value to 0.5, right? So then it just kind of comes in like that. And because they were both the same, it will always have the soft edge on all the sides. And remember, the soft edge is changing the size of the particles. So as it's coming in with small particles, and then the particles are getting bigger. But yeah, that's how that came in. So you could always play around with the timing on this till you get something that you like. Obviously, the one that I made at the beginning here does look a little bit better, but that is pretty much how it was all made. Let's go back to that previous version. We'll load that version in here. Oh, the colors are even better. Yeah, so that's how that was made. All right, so I think I'm going to be done with this one. If you guys want these project files, they will be available on the websites. Speaking about the website, if you want to know more about DaVinci Resolve, I have a bunch of courses on there, right around 30 hours. I also have over 200 pre-made assets like titles, transitions, slideshows, all that sort of thing up there available as well. Speaking about that, if you just want to download all this stuff, you can get a membership, download all the stuff, and then cancel your membership. That's a thing that is possible, but yeah, hopefully you guys stick around for a little bit more than just 1 month and give me some suggestions on things to make the overall membership better. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, what you guys want to see, and until the next one, guys, have a good one. See ya.